All right, so today we are with Vincent Chung, and I definitely want to get into like who you are, what you do, where you're working at, where you're living, all that fun stuff. But just do a little bit about your background, your history, I'd say education wise. I just like, what you were into in high school, and then we'll get into college a little bit. So yeah, what were you like in high school?
So I was everywhere in high school. So I went to Stevenson High School up in Lincolnshire, probably, I want to say maybe 40 minutes from the Wisconsin border.
Wow, you're way up there.
Yeah, way, way up there. We played football in the fall. I did fencing though in the winter, which is definitely a bit unusual for a football player. And I ran track um, in the spring. But that was mostly because my football coach also coached track and I tried to get more field time, more playing time. It's one of those things. Yeah, we all know that. Yeah. So you either do wrestling or track, right? Or both. Also in band. I was also a band geek and played orchestra as well. So I was really literally just all over the place. But also as a result of that, I had friends that were all over the place as well. Friends who were in honors math, as well as friends who were in marching band. And of course my friends from sports. But what that gave me was an opportunity to see many different paradigms and ways of thinking and how we approach things. And that was a tremendous experience for me to just never say no to any opportunity.
Yeah, I'd say that makes you pretty well rounded. I had a similar upbringing where I was in a little bit of everything, and I think it's definitely paid off for you. And yeah, fencing. I'm from Central Illinois. We didn't have fencing. Did that translate over at all to any of the other like football? I mean, I guess it has to do something with agility.
Actually, not really.
No. Well, first of all, what was your position of football?
I was a fullback,
Okay.
which is not a thing anymore these days.
Yeah, very rare unless you play at Michigan, I guess, or Harbaugh liked them, so maybe in the pros still. Cool. So yeah, then after high school, where'd you end up going to college? What was your major?
Yeah, so I was a psychology major, focusing on neuroscience over at Purdue University,
Nice.
out in West Lafayette.
Very cool.
I did it in 2011, and had no idea what I wanted to do. Your first job out of college, I worked in for a freight forwarding organization out in like Bensonville. I was making like what $8 an hour,
Okay.
and I was just helping clear shipments as they were coming to the country. A lot of stuff has a tariff code assigned to it, so that when folks bring stuff in, they have to pay some level of tax. And I noticed the entire industry was doing this manually for the most part, and there was a really high error rate. It's about like 35%, and that's baked into the whole process here. So I just ended up automating the way how these things were processed, just using some really, really basic PowerShell scripts, some very basic auto hotkey techniques, as well as some VBA, and just all mashed together in a very immature way to read in these invoices, look up what they would be on in the U.S. tariff code book, and pump out like what tariff should be charged.
So is that something that you had learned in college or you just figured out on your own? Because I'm not sure if that relates back to your original degree.
Yeah, it completely does not. Yeah, so I started off college as a applied math and stats major under the econ department, so it was very different. And then I just kind of burnt out from that, and I just didn't really want to do it. I didn't even know why I selected the major I did at first. So I took AP Econ, AP Micro Econ. I still remember his name, Mr. Han. He owns a bed and breakfast. Well, he passed away, I found out, but his family still owns a bed and breakfast up in Mackinac Island. So Han's Inn, that's his family's. And he was an incredible teacher. And I think I mistakenly thought my positive experience with that teacher meant that I also have a positive experience with econ. And so that's why I selected that as a major. Then ended up,
That's a good lesson in itself.
yeah, yeah, yeah. But then I got really good at the whole Excel thing and working with data, and started keeping my eye out for other opportunities. This was also still shortly after the great financial um, crisis, the GFC. I still remember going on like monster.com and seeing like for jobs that were entry level, at the very bottom of the page, there's no page 1, 2, 3, 4, etc. nowadays. Well, back then there was only one page and it was barely filled. It was maybe like 4 or 5. So every day I would just refresh, look for opportunities. And at the time I applied for everything. Because I'm like, I got to just get a job. We had student loans to pay. And then, sorry, 1 second. Here we go. Ended up later on pivoting to Empire, the carpet company. 5'8", a 300 Empire.
Sure, yeah.
Yes, they were looking for a business analyst that was handy with Excel. And so that got me real good, real slick with at least some experience. And then from there, jumped a few more times. We can get into that later. But in the middle of all the jumping around, I got to see a little bit more, like almost like I'm just peeling the onion back and seeing more of different types of areas within analytics, from dashboarding, got some exposure to Tableau, got exposure on the fly to SQL, and then had a coworker who was very fond of R. And so I'm like, oh, I better learn whatever this is. And a lot of it is really because I just thought that whatever I was doing, I wanted to be better. And I wanted to have a better circumstance for myself.
So it sounds like a lot of that is not, it wasn't formalized training. Like you said, it was like on the fly.
Yep, it was on the fly. But then I realized at some point I needed proper formalized training. A lot of this stuff I was just like hacking together. And so that's when I came across the MSBA, Master of Science in Business Analytics program at Notre Dame. Looking at the curriculum, it literally had everything I wanted to learn. There was not a single class, even ethics. I thought was incredibly important, just because with it at that time, also big data was heavily talked about, right? But no one ever talked about what you shouldn't do. It was always what you should or not. No, it was always about what you could do, right? With these things. And I'm like, why is no one asking these questions? That, and I think the overall community of Notre Dame, the idea that everyone had some level of value and meaning to contribute to each other as a team was incredibly important for me. I really want to have that sort of development. I knew just in terms of soft skills, that was just something I heavily lacked, especially coming from Purdue, which was heavily cutthroat environment. Most of the classes, especially the first couple of years, we had, I guess, far more weed out classes than, well, actually, I can't say we should have far more, but there's plenty of weed out classes where students would not be willing to help each other. If you had a question, kids would be, well, if I help the guy next to me, then that's just going to mess up the curves, right? And so
something probably a lot of people didn't consider. Like I did not have that experience when I was at Millikan. It was more of a cohort style, almost like Notre Dame was a cohort style where you wanted everybody to get through.
Yeah.
So a little bit different.
Yeah. Yeah. And then I sat in on a class, visited a class at Notre Dame, and saw everyone helping each other. And I'm like, oh my God, that's amazing. Because you can definitely go as fast as you want, maybe even faster than other people by yourself, but you can go further with other people. And that was
exactly. I can see like Big Mike definitely going fast, but then also having his own team. I agree. It was an amazing program. And this is all something I'll put in the show notes too, is like where people can still find this. It's out there. And then any other reference that you have. So definitely, besides like the analytics, I mean, you can tell you're passionate about that, passionate about Notre Dame itself and that experience. Is there anything else that right now personally, like you're passionate about?
Right now? So I just want to have a good life for myself. I recently got married and want to have a good life for my spouse as well. And that's pretty much my main priority, actually, to be honest. I feel like I've done most of what I wanted to do from an achievement standpoint in analytics, with a few more things I want to check off, but I'm not gonna announce it until I do it.
Understandable. Yeah. So it's kind of interesting because it's like, I'm trying to figure out the difference between like having passion, like, and then also like what motivates you. And then sometimes that is some of the same things. So is there anything that's separate besides like what's the motivating factor that's inside you right now to do this?
To do analytics or to?
No, just for that good life. Like what's your drive?
So at some point, right, I'll start a family. I want my wife and my future child to have a far better experience. I think everyone wants the next generation to do better, and not just career-wise or financially, but even just to have a better life holistically. So that's my main motivation now.
Just, setting yourself up for a better future. And actually a good life is a really, really good one. Cause I mean, my fear is by doing some of these people like, oh, it's all about the money. It's like, there's definitely more to life than money. So that's
Absolutely.
Good to hear.
Being present, being, active, right? Cause forming memories, right, with folks that you just, otherwise you can't get if you're, chained to your desk, hammering away at a keyboard.
Well, speaking of keyboards and hammering away, we do have to talk about what you do for a living and where you work. So let's shift a little bit from your history into, actually just right off the bat, where do you work now?
So I work at Snowflake. We're a data cloud platform organization, and I'm a solutions engineer within the healthcare vertical at Snowflake. And within the healthcare vertical, I'm specifically tied to the Texas region and with the major providers. Think um, Baylor Scott White, Tenet Healthcare, MD Anderson, that level. Not to say that those are clients or not, but those are like at that level of size and scale. My role it ranges from both functional and technical. So functional wise, understanding different business teams within my client space, and helping them pragmatically apply, at least in the current state, applying data science and analytical capabilities, even data engineering capabilities to help them do things just more efficiently. But then also showing them that, nudging them towards that North Star of possibilities, which is extremely exciting and sexy nowadays with Gen AI being a thing. And one of the core pillars of Snowflake is that the technology should just work and should work for a broad range of folks. One thing that drew me to Snowflake was that it's a very positive environment. It actually reminds me a little bit about the culture, reminds me of the culture we have at Notre Dame of just being a force for good. We don't gatekeep anything. I know we get criticized a lot because folks will say, oh, well, Snowflake technology is just too easy. It's too, like, they also call it dumbed down. I say that's a bunch of BS to stick your nose up at someone. And I definitely had some great opportunities to learn what I learned. But I think the end goal, right, is to be able to use these techniques in novel ways to solve, various different problems, and everyone should have access to that. So that's kind of what I do. From a technical standpoint, I'll build demos. Sometimes I'll even speak at conferences and present.
How long has Snowflake been around?
I think we IPO'd in, I think, 2020 or 2021. I think we had like the largest increase in shortly after IPO in tech history. I think we were founded in 2017, 2016. We started off as we're founded by a couple of ex-Oracle guys, and they determined, hey, a lot of folks that are moving to the cloud are just taking traditional on-prem solutions and just porting it over to the cloud. We need something that's purposely built for the cloud. And that's where Benoit and Terry had built Snowflake. They had this great idea, separating storage from compute and having the abilities to expand as needed in terms of scaling up, out, across, whether you need more horsepower to run a more complicated computation, or you have a huge scaling out of more individuals trying to tap into the compute space.
Understandable. So what does a average day look like for you?
That's great. So one of the great things I love about my job is that there is no average day. And especially being in a solutions engineer role, and with how fast paced our platform is growing and expanding, there's always something new to learn. We're constantly training and learning new things. But I typically start my day, if I'm not doing some knocking out some required training, just catching up on customer emails. Some of it's like pretty quick and easy, like, oh, can you just take a look at, I don't know, they'll have like some architecture diagram they're trying to formulate through or think through, and then I'll just take a look, provide some feedback. Others are more long term. So, for example, I have a major healthcare provider out in central Texas. Oh no, I'm sorry, North Texas, and they're completely doing an AI transformation. They need to build out an ML ops platform. They had some point solutions of folks building out random data science models, but they didn't have a formal place to load those models, to orchestrate them, and also to track their performance. So I have a long-term commitment with them to help them build out that MLOps platform, as well as show them organizationally what does it look like for the functional teams, like for supply chain or for the community health team to build their own models, and who do they connect to for support to get into production. Even some nitty-gritty details of like, well, how do you even approach model building, which is always kind of fun for me. So
with your position, like, because I know you personally, so I know that you know the back end stuff. Are you doing the front end stuff too? Like, are you working, I guess, with the clients to try to explain all this and trying to be the go between?
So, kind of, yeah. So so I'm not in consulting anymore. We can go into that, later on in the conversation. But one of the really cool things about being a solutions engineer is that I can provide the solutions and ideas and be a thought leader, a thought partner. But I'm not committed to having to deliver anything tangible, other than the success, other than leading my customers to success and having some successful outcome. All that to say,
Very
though,
cool.
I've definitely done plenty of code reviews. I have office hours. Although that's not may not be consistent across other solutions engineers, and it differs from organization to organization.
Yeah. So I know that you mentioned one of the things you really like about the job, similar to mine, is like every day is different. What else, I guess, would you say that you like about your current position?
Meeting people. I think that's the best part. Is just for me, I want to make friends with my customers. I don't view them as customers. And I know for a lot of folks, they're just getting, even nowadays in 2024, and we're emerging into 2025 soon. A lot of organizations are still trying to figure out their data science, their analytics, like what what their cadence looks like, what they want to do with that technology, or even how to structure their team around it to accomplish things. And then at a more nitty gritty detail, folks who are just rolling out of their master's programs I'm working with as well on the client side, and they've got that fire in the belly still. And I love just working with those folks and helping them mature their understanding of data science and helping them get some wins under their belt. And then for the leadership, helping them see data science, I guess, shaping the way how they see data science, and in a really cool way, leaving my thumbprints on the organization.
Well, and also, so I think you and I are right now suffering from something called the curse of knowledge, where we know what all this is. So we're just going back and forth. But for the listeners out there, what would your definition of data science be if anyone's interested in the field?
It's actually, so I think it's, and I know I'm stealing from Professor Chappell on this one when he's describing even just broadly advanced analytics, is that we're taking a lot of traditional computational statistical approaches, but stacking them and layering them in very novel ways to solve modern day problems. I'm very fond of that definition, especially because the very ending of that, right, is to solve problems. I have oftentimes seen too many folks taking traditional analytical techniques, overcomplicating them, over-engineering them, and completely losing sight of some measurable result, right? Whether it's revenue generation or cost containment or something, right? It's like, well, look at how sexy this model is, and it's like, well, I don't know.
Yeah, don't get away from the core of like what we're here for.
Exactly.
It's also got to be cool too, because as you mentioned, you've got people that are coming out of programs and they got the fire in the belly. They know just enough to be dangerous and probably to go apply things. That's one of those, just because you can doesn't mean that you should. You got to prioritize what can be done. But then also, like you said, with the clients, I learned this in Notre Dame too. Like, everyone's been collecting data for a long time, and most of them have no idea what to do with it. And so it's not quite the Wild West like it was probably a couple of years ago. But having best practices out there and seeing the wow on people's faces when you do show them what is possible. And then you guys are on another level, because the stuff I'm doing is on my computer. It's not really even in the cloud. Playing around with some R stuff, but it's got to be amazing from that end. So you can tell you're loving your company, you're loving what you do. Is there anything that you don't like about the role?
Not that I don't like, but sometimes I do miss being a consultant and being a little bit more engaged and hands-on. And a few times I've accidentally overstepped. Not that I've overstepped, but I've like, there's some moments where for certain work streams or for use cases, if I'm seeing even the project manager is operating, let's just call it suboptimally, and I even have with my personal goals at Snowflake, right, is I want to see these use cases deployed into production a certain way, in a sustainable way. I don't want something that's just like glued together and that'll just fall apart later. And in my mind, that'll just come back to me and come back to my organization. So I'll just step in and be like, okay, let me just PM this. And then I've realized, wait a minute, I'm neither a consultant for them, nor am I, part of their organization. So then I've had to realize that and kind of step back a bit.
That goes to the team player thing, because sometimes like you could probably do it a lot faster on your own, but also you'd probably drive yourself mad trying to be everything to everybody. So you have to either
Exactly.
delegate or rely on your teammates for sure.
Exactly.
So do you work from home? Do you work in an office? Like, how's that look? What's the environment
Yeah.
like?
So it's a mixture. So I would say a majority of my time is spent at home, but being in the Texas area, and I'm fairly central to all of my customers. I'm only 2.5. Well, if there's no traffic and I can just speed through, it's about 2.5 hours to Dallas. Typically, that's like 3.5 hours, 3.5 to 4 dealing with daytime traffic. 3 hours to Houston. So I spend I have quarterlies with most of my customers. So once every 3 months. And then if there's a conference in Texas that my customers are going to, I'll go there as well and meet them up. Or if there's a conference that I'm presenting at. So last year I presented at the Data Cloud World Tour in Austin, and that's like in my own backyard. There's the Fierce Healthcare Conference once a year in Austin. So last year I was just sitting at a booth and just answering questions and just making friends.
And you did mention earlier, like, you had your own goals that were out there. So I guess the question is, like, how do you know you're successful at your job?
I don't know if I'm being successful. And I think that's a good thing, right? I think if you get too comfortable and you think, okay, I'm successful, you start to slip. You start to come a little bit undone. Might even accidentally dial into a call with, your pajamas on. Just kidding. Just kidding. So I think it's always good to have that level of that. I don't want to call it self-doubt, but just thinking that you can always do more. And just and hold yourself realistically and be honest, to yourself, and hold yourself to it and say, okay, what could I have done more? And think, okay, next week, I'll do better. So at the end of the week, I think about what did I do well? So on a Friday, afternoon, what did I do well this week? Be realistic and pat yourself on the back too. And, but then also, what did I not do well? And one thing that actually stuck with me, I think about this every week, is that, Patrick, you had said, there's wins and lessons, not wins and losses. And I think about that every week, and I think, okay, what are my lessons for this week? Patrick Hoban taught me that.
Yeah, it's winner. It's winner, learn, never lose. So that's definitely it. It's, as long as you're taking something away, you're moving forward. That's awesome. So, I mean, so from getting back to like the purpose of the interview for my class, the PH thing is trying to find out the KSAs. So out of everything you've learned over the years, like, what knowledge do you possess now that has helped you be successful in your current role?
I would say, having jumped around a lot to many different industries, through consulting, through even just having done this for about 12 years, that's been incredibly helpful to have never said no to anything. So when someone says, hey, Vince, do you want to build a Tableau dashboard for me on last year's, I don't know, repair body frame straightening, whatever techniques. I used to work for Gerber as well, car repair place. And I had no idea what the hell Tableau was, but I'm like, you know what? I'll volunteer for that. But here's a realistic timeline of how long it might take me. But give me the chance to learn Tableau, and saying that to many other things as well, to many other technologies, and learning everything. Right? And I know a lot of people who are passionate about the sexy things, they may turn their nose up and say, well, I'm too good for the plumbing work, to write data engineering pipelines. I was guilty of that too at one point, having experienced many different things. And that's paid off tremendously now, where now I have an opinion on many different things. And although also my customers expect me to have an opinion on many different things, that's made myself, very valuable with my customers as well as internally.
So I would almost take that all the way back to high school. Just the fact that you had all the different activities, that multidisciplinary approach. For me, like I mentioned the similarities there, you can connect the dots a lot faster because you can see the relationships between so many different activities, so many different, even the fields that are out there, what you're studying at university. I remember being in high school, I'm like, why in the heck do I have to take, I'm never going to use this, but later on in life, you can see how some of the pattern recognition relates across the board. It kind of reminds me of watching Arnold Schwarzenegger's documentary, Pumping Iron, and they show them going to ballet. And it's like, why is a bodybuilder going there? But it's trying to work on just taking a different approach at something. I think you're seeing that with a lot of different places. So with you and your experience across multiple fields, and you're right, especially younger in your career, and just don't say no. I mean, if anything, you're going to learn, even if it's the wrong way. I learned a lot by watching other people do things the wrong way. I'm like, I'm not going to make that mistake. So what do they say? It's something about mistakes are the greatest teacher. And that's how you get experience. Because without experience, if you're always winning, you're not really learning anything. So you don't know what your flaws are.
Exactly.
So I think that's definitely there. So when it comes to the skills, like even hard or soft skills, what do you think the top 3 skills are that somebody else would need to have in order to do your job?
You definitely need to have structured thinking. Because I think, and knowing how to prepare and do even just internal dress rehearsals for presentation. That's incredibly useful in the tech space. There's just, to your wording earlier too, there's just so much. This area just goes so deep, right? And that if I don't set up guardrails even for myself, I'll just start going all over the place. So yeah, just coming into things with structured thinking, and knowing how you want to relay that information. Before I even got into consulting, I would record myself. I would make like some PowerPoint slides on some random topic, or I'd find like a question, like somebody may have a question on Twitter about how to do something, and I would make PowerPoint slides on that, and think, okay, what story do I want to tell, and I'd record myself with a little webcam presenting on this, and then I would watch those presentations, just to kind of get myself just a little bit closer to the abilities that I want to have.
Is there anybody that you've seen do that really well that you would like to emulate or that you did back then?
I would say Austin Nesseth from school.
Yeah, shout out to Austin.
Yeah. He's extremely good at structuring like what he wants to say, and then coming out with it, even if it's about NFL players with concussions.
No,
Yeah,
for sure. No, you're right. That's kind of like my thing. Whenever I see, if I'm doing any type of strategic planning, it's like, all right, here's where I'm at now. Here's where I want to get to, and then just try to break down what it would take to get there. But you're awesome. Austin is actually a really good example of that. So if there's like, I mean, we talked about what the skills would be, but is there anything like capacity wise that you do differently? Like you said, you're good at PowerPoint presentations, you're good at the coding side, you're good at structured thinking. Is there any way that you do that differently than others that sets you apart?
yeah. Talk to people like they understand what you're talking about. That may be interpreted in a way I may not want it to be. So one of my pet peeves is when I see people who are, even if they're like incredibly brilliant or even unfortunately pedantic, is that they talk down to people. Like I've seen incredibly talented folks at a technical level talk down to their audience. I talk to folks as if they know exactly what I'm talking about, although I will have pauses to allow those folks to ask questions if there's something that they don't understand. I've gotten feedback at various different levels from individual contributors to VP that they appreciate the candid conversation, that I just talk to them as if they're like a classmate or a friend, and that I don't talk down to anyone. I think I highly recommend folks to take that approach.
Yeah, especially in the field of tech, I can see that because you're interfacing between a lot of personality types and knowledge bases. I think even Saturday Night Live had a skit about that where the IT guy was a jerk that would come in and people didn't know, what he was talking about. And even in my space, I didn't even think about that, but that is something I try to do in economic development because most people, they know a little bit, but they don't know the whole structure. So yeah, I think if you can talk to people like, everyone has something to contribute. I don't care what level you're on. And there's even some psychologists that say if you can get back creativity wise to thinking like a child, you're actually better off in moving something forward. So that's solid advice. Is there any other, before we get on to like where you live and the cool things about your neighborhood and community, like to get where you're at now, what advice would you go back and give to 18-year-old Vince?
What advice would I give? There's many opportunities to have redos, and with those redos, you have a time to learn from those mistakes, and to take your learnings to have a second or third chance. They may not be apparent. You have to keep your eyes open for those opportunities, but they're there.
Yeah, I think that goes back to, I mean, you said it earlier about, or what we were talking about, how, you get experience from making mistakes and not to overanalyze because there's definitely the whole paralysis by analysis. And my thing early on, even looking back now, is just not to be afraid to make those mistakes. And there are definitely some, I'm not saying go crazy, but you got to take chances and you're going to learn from it. And like you said, you're not going to get everything all at once. It's supposed to be incremental growth. And I think a lot of times, whether that's working out or anything, people just like, well, I'm never going to get there. And it's like, you are, but it's never going to be a straight line. I don't know anybody who's done it from A to B and it was smooth. It's going to be up and down. So it's definitely solid advice. All right, let's switch gears a little bit and talk about the community that you're at. So if you can talk about, I guess, where you're living, community-wise, and what are like the top 3 things that you enjoy doing there?
Yeah. So I live in Leander, Texas. I want to say when I first moved down here, the population was like maybe 45, 50,000. Now we're at a little over 100,000.
Holy cow. That was only like not even 4 years ago, 3 years ago?
Yeah, it was considered one of the fastest growing towns in America. It's incredible.
So you guys have to have like cranes and construction constantly for the infrastructure.
Constantly. Yes, constantly. There are new roads popping up in places that like my GPS would get confused because even like a lot of the roads would just get rerouted. And so, but we're finally, the town is wrapping that up. We're having a whole new downtown neighborhood built in. And being from Chicago and part of the Chicago sprawl, there's a lot of towns that are historic and outside of Chicago that are built around the railroad tracks, right? If you look at Wilmette or even Naperville, right? That's connected by train.
Even Tinley Park, where I was at, like the whole thing. Yes. I think Tinley was the name of the first train station manager.
Yeah. And so I'm actually seeing that now where we have the first train line out of Austin, Texas, and goes up to Leander. And there's a podunk little train stop. And now we're building a downtown neighborhood around it. So there's a proper city hall, a bank, a fire station. It's crazy to see all this. And there really were not many amenities at all either. So I would just go down to the town next door, like Cedar Park.
Yeah, so it's probably just like a bedroom community. So all that's coming. So I guess maybe not just in your town, but like what are the top things that you like to do when you're not working?
One of the things, I don't know if this is about like Texas culture or what, and I heard this when before I came down, was a lot of folks who recommend restaurants in place of activities. And that may be confusing for folks. Like, well, man, I just asked for the top 5 things to do and you gave me a list of restaurants. What is that?
So like, I know they always joke that everything's bigger in Texas. Like, how big are the meals down there?
They range from like pretty insanely massive to on par with what we get in Chicago.
I was going to say, like, that's not fair. You coming from Chicago, because us being downstate, central Illinois, I remember the first thing getting to Chicago was like, why are these portions so massive? Like, you're definitely getting 2 meals out of these.
Yeah. First time, so one of my favorite things to eat is chicken fried steak.
For sure.
Went down to Bastrop, Texas, which is like about an hour south of Austin. Just driving around, just checking things out. And yeah, this chicken fried steak was like, I don't know, must have been 14 inches across. So it was insane.
That sounds like some of the, what are they, the fried pork tenderloin sandwiches here at a fair, like the bun's this big, but then the pork tenderloin's like this big. It's so stupid.
But so there's actually a really interesting concept I don't know if it started here in Austin, and I'll describe it shortly, but there's this place called The Domain. It's a very popular place for people to hang out. It's almost like it's run by the Simons Property Group. And so there are the restaurants, there's activities, there's even apartments and condos and townhouses all wrapped in together in one location, which is interesting for Texas because Texas, not many things are walkable. And this has been so successful. And this was built outside of Austin on the north end. And the intention was that so folks who live in the northern suburbs, such as myself, do not have to drive an hour to get into downtown for the amenities. We can just come into the northern fringe border. And this has been so successful that they're going to replicate this in, I think, one in the south suburbs and one in Leander, where I live. And they're going to call the one in Leander is Northline, but it's going to have just in a very densely populated area, a whole bunch of just a mall, shopping mall area, almost like Oak Brook's outdoor mall out in that area. But where above the stores are apartments and condos. And then there'll be another section of townhouses and office buildings.
Nice. That reminds me of, so I just taught the SIUE's basic economic development course, and it's over at NICOR's headquarters in Naperville. So it's right next to that Topgolf. And there's a complex similar to that. I don't know if it's as big, but you said it's called the Domain. That's by the Simons Group.
Yes, it is the domain, and then there's
Okay.
like Simon's Group like printed right below it.
Nice. Yeah, I'll check that out. So is that Simons Group? Are they doing the other ones too that you guys are going to get?
I think so.
Okay. Yeah, interesting concept. Yeah, I mean, I know walkability is huge, especially with the next generation. That's part of the environmental psychology stuff that I want to do some more research on. So I know that matters. And usually here I would kind of go into your commuting and everything else, but it sounds like your commute is pretty long because you're meeting the clients where they're at or going to conferences. So you don't have the regular day-to-day commute that some people in our occupations would be. So yeah, we can skip that portion of it. So is there anything that, well, here's the other hard part. Like you're growing so fast in your community. Is there anything you dislike right now? I mean, probably besides traffics and roads disappearing.
Yeah, traffic is insane, but there's a new like 4-lane road that's being built adjacent to a small like dirt road. That was like a 2-lane road, and they just doubled it and built like 2 like smaller like almost like frontage roads, and they're building a larger main road in the middle that's still under construction. So we now have to share these makeshift frontage roads.
So it makes navigating hard, but it won't always be that way. And that's, yeah, because there's definitely places that are not growing like yours. So they'd be begging to have this type of activity. Is there anything like from Chicago or anywhere else that you live, like some type of amenity that you miss and would like to have where you're at now?
So there was one, I guess.
Besides Notre Dame, you're not taking that, but I mean,
So that was hard being so far from like those kind of things.
campus.
From campus, and even from like you guys, although you're in Central Illinois, but
Yeah,
still,
but we get up there quite a bit.
Yeah.
So like, yeah, we'll still go to shows.
But some Chicago family opened up a Chicago-based restaurant, Chicago-style restaurant, down the
Where
street.
you're at?
Yeah, and the inside looks almost like as if I'm stepping into a Chicago establishment. It's like a brick wall interior. It's almost like you're stepping to like a repurposed warehouse. Like design, yeah. They got deep dish. They got all kinds of things.
How does the deep dish compare though?
Not the same.
So
Well, actually, the owner's wife went to Millikan. So that was
really?
pretty cool. Yeah, I'm like, hey, I know someone who went to Millikan.
Yeah, small world.
Yeah.
That's funny.
Yeah. I think she's from Decatur as well.
Okay.
So yeah.
Wonder who that is. So like besides that, is there anything else I guess you would want to do to improve the community that you're in, or anything that you would change, which is hard to know because you're, like I said, you're changing so fast as is.
There's a lot of concert venues down here.
Cool.
It's pretty amazing. And you can get, not just in Austin, but even in the suburbs. And you get almost any style of music from country to hip hop to rock. I think the Blue Oyster Cult, like from the 70s.
Sure. Yeah.
They even came by and did a quick show.
Yeah, they're the cowbell song, aren't they?
Yeah.
From that SNL skit, Don't Kill the Reaper, yeah.
With the infamous Will Ferrell.
Will Ferrell, yep. Yeah, so they were just talking about that the other day. So yeah, it sounds like you're living in a very happening place. And I've never been to Austin, but I've heard amazing things, like, because they do things a little bit differently with zoning, or lack thereof zoning. I guess you can pretty much do freeform as long as it matches the building code, which is very cool.
There's no
awesome. Like, no sports?
No sports. Well, I mean, like, I guess University of Texas.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, where's your football? Or no sports.
So the Dallas Cowboys is up north. Same with the Rangers up north. The only professional sports team we have is called the Austin FC, the football club, the soccer team.
Okay.
But otherwise, I mean, I guess if you like football, you have to, I guess, just go to a UT game.
Yeah. Well, I mean, right now, as a Bears fan, you're not missing much, but I think they got a bright future.
Oh, yeah.
And Notre Dame's looking good after that whole NIU thing, which I don't want to get into because my phone blew up so bad after that with people giving me a hard time. But yeah, it's going to be back on track.
But it's okay, because when Dabo got started, when he was early on in his career, he would have these like really silly losses to like the most obscure teams. One day he would like beat Texas A&M, and the next week he would lose to Southwestern Louisiana School for Kids Who Want to Read Good.
Right, exactly. Awesome. So yeah, we went full circle as far as like, who you are, what you do for a living, what you like about your community. If you were, I guess, going to sell your community to get, Sarah and I to move where you're at, like what would be the perfect day, or how would you showcase where you're at?
I would say for folks with an entrepreneurial spirit, the getting is real good right now. There's not many barbershops. At least there wasn't one. There weren't many like last year. There weren't many coffee shops. I think just there's only one coffee shop actually in my community within like a 5 mile radius. So it's pretty insane. But now there's like a couple of small mom and pop shops. But all that to say is like the community, they're building up all these massive strip mall type and business located commercial districts that are getting filled up rapidly. And it's pretty much the Wild West of whoever has an idea, creates an LLC and just opens up an office space and offers whatever. They'll be the first ones to serve the community.
So it'd be pretty easy just to drive through some of the Chicago suburbs and be like, all right, here are the top 10 things that they've got. And you go down there and you're missing 3 and just go for it.
Exactly. And with Apple down the street, so Apple has a huge campus off of Ronald Reagan just down the street from me. And all those people, they're going to need, I don't know, coffee shops and, I don't know, places to drop off their kids for stuff. And so the getting is real good for small business. And Texas is very small business friendly.
Yeah, I know business-wise, tax-wise too, and even incentives, which is a whole nother ballgame down there compared to what we had in Chicago or even Central Illinois. So definitely a business-friendly state if you know how to do development and economic development. They've been doing very well, which is obvious by the rapid growth and what you guys are doing. Well, Vince, this has been awesome. You definitely talked about the job, talked about yourself, talked about the advice you give yourself at an earlier age, and sounds like you're in a very happening place. Sarah and I need to make plans. We'll probably do that around some type of a concert. So if we can find somebody we like down there. I know that like you guys have, what is it? Austin City Limits is a big music fest.
Do. Yeah. Yeah.
So maybe if we can find some of our favorite acts going down there, we'll give that a look-see.
Yeah. Yeah, please do.
Other than that, if you guys ever get back up to Chicagoland, let us know. And then, Sarah and I definitely need to make plans to come down and see you, but appreciate the time. Is there anything else you wanted to cover while I got you?
It's just good to see you.
Yeah, you too.
I think we're all like extremely busy. And I know everyone at Notre Dame is extremely talented and they all have something amazing going on. And I'm always hesitant to I don't want to get in the way of people doing something really cool and sexy. But this was really good to have this time.
Now, it was the same with like when I was talking to Pete a little while ago. It's just like catching up and like there's a lot of environmental psychology focuses on the buildings that are around us, but you can't forget about the faces. And so a lot of that energy that we had going to campus and even, down in downtown Chicago was getting to see you guys. So, I mean, the classes were amazing, but working with you guys was also amazing. And you're right. Everybody went on to do great things. So we definitely need to do this more. And I'm probably going to interview, I got to catch up with Austin because he's got to be doing some crazy stuff over at Tableau.
Oh, yeah.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate your time. With that, we'll go ahead and wrap this up.